Welcome to this video in the MRDCL Understanding Concepts series. In this video we're going to look at the subject of rim weighting. Now it's probably a good idea that unless you're familiar with the target weighting procedures in MRDCL and you've watched that video, you really should watch that before looking at the rim weighting video, because it's going to build on some of the concepts that are already discussed in the target weighting video. So first of all, what is rim weighting? Well, rim weighting only differs from ordinary target weighting in that target weighting you have a matrix of figures. So for example, if you were going to weight gender within age, you would have the interlocking cells for all of the different age groups within the two genders. So you would have, for example, male under 35, male over 35, female under 35 and male over 35. With rim weighting, you don't have that. You just have the targets for gender and the targets for age without the interlocking cells. Now, sometimes you have a number of rims. You might have targets for gender, targets for age, targets for region, targets for social grade and things like that. And you don't have all the interlocking cells or the targets, the interlocking cells within the matrix of all the combinations that are possible. So there are some things to be careful about with rim weighting. If you look on our website, there is a white paper that gives you some information on how to use rim weighting safely, because if you give it too many rims to target to, or too many variables to depend on others, you can start to get slightly volatile data. And one piece of advice I'd always give rim weighting is always check the range of weights that you're getting out, because it can be possible if your data is needing a lot of weighting, that some fairly high or some very low weights are applied, which might make your effective sample size much smaller than you would imagine, and therefore your data won't be quite as robust as you might have hoped. So warnings aside, let's look at how we go through the techniques of rim weighting, and everything looks pretty much the same up to the end of the data stage, where we're going to pick up the variables, where we're going to do the rim weighting. It's in the table stage that things, and in the manipulation stage, that things are somewhat different. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to build a table which is the actual figures for the figures in our matrix. So here we just had two rims, gender and age. If you had more than two rims, you would need to build a table. Let's say you had a region, you'd need to build a variable that was gender within region, for example, and your table would have to be two-dimensional, so you would need to do gender underscore region, or having done a dot by dot or something like that, by age. The other way that you could do it would be to have a series of tables, of rim tables, one for each region, which you scaled up, possibly to the same or different figures. This example, though, is sticking to just a two-dimensional example, so we've got gender by age. So that's going to produce my actual figures in there. You'll note that we've got MPTB, so it's not actually going to print this table out. It's going to calculate the figures, and if you want to use the real files that are used here, you'll find them in the folder tab 103, TAB 103, and you can turn that off so that you can actually see this in action, so you can actually see what your actual figures are and how the rim weighting is working in a little bit more detail. The next table is, if you like, a dummy table. That's just a table where we're just setting up an empty table, and it just has gender in total, in the total column, that is. So in the rows we'll have the two genders, and it'll just be a total only column table. And in that, in a minute, we're going to put our targets. The next one does the same thing with age, so we're sort of splitting down the dimensions of this as age. If our table, or if our target matrix was gender within age within region, would have a rim table like this, a rim 1, 2 and a rim 3 for gender, age and region, so we could put in the targets for each of those rims separately. The final table is the table that's going to calculate the weighting for us, and rim weighting is an iterative process where it basically sets one of the rims to be correct, and then the next, and then the next. And as it does that each time, the earlier targets will be out of line. But every time it goes on an iteration around those rims, it will get closer and closer to the targets you want. And again, as I say, this is all explained in a free document that you can download from our website. So we now go into the manip stage, and in here we're putting the targets for rim 1, which is gender. Now this looks a little bit unusual, but the first cell is 100 because it's 100% that we want to weight to. If that was a number, we could put a number in there like 520 if we wanted to weight to a weighted base of 520. But I'm weighting to a percentage of 50-50. Now, one thing that's absolutely crucial, and it is that the figures that follow the first figure add up to that figure. If you put in 50, 49 and 100, or 150, 49 as the three figures there, or even 49.999, you would have a problem because rim weighting will keep striving to match those figures exactly, and if it can't, you'll get errors. So make sure that the figures sum to the total figure that you've got here. For our second rim, which is the three age groups, we're weighting, there'll be 100%, 40, 40 and 20%, so that should be doing that correctly. And then we've got to use a rim function. There's a number of functions in MRDCL. Most aren't used too frequently, but %rim is one that will apply rim weighting for you and do the calculations you need. So we're making the table, or we're nipping the table we set up here. So rim weight was just a dummy table of gender by age. And we're saying that that is %rim. Now %rim has at least three functions in it, and usually four or more. The first argument in this list of items in the function are the weighted base that you want to produce. If we put in the figure U, that will tell it to weight it back to the original weighted base. So in this case, I had 7 respondents, so it's going to weight that base back to 7 people. The next argument in here, rim AC, is the table that stores the actual numbers. So gender by age is the table AC, so that's going to use my actual figures to start to weight up using my rims that I've defined. And then what follows are all the rims one by one. Now in this case we've only got gender and age, so it's pulling in the table rim 1, the table rim 2. If we had age within gender within region, we'd have rim 1, rim 2, rim 3, and they must be in the order of the within. So if we had gender within age as the rows of the table and region as the columns of my table, rim 1 would be gender, rim 2 would be region, rim 3 would be age, because that's the important order that we would want to follow. So now we have a table that's going to calculate my targets for me. I get into the table stage, and now it's pretty much the same as picking up ordinary target weighting. So we've got rim X equals gender by age to, if you like, explode that variable out to the 6 different categories of gender within age. I pick up the weight from the table rim WT, where it's done all that calculation for me. And now you can see I've got a table where I'm running the table unweighted. So select WRW1, a table unweighted, and then I select WRW weight to check that my weighting has worked, and I've got DPT1 in there and gender by age. Let's run that and just check it seems to be producing what we want. So sure enough, here's my rim weight, the figure, the table that's going to apply the weights, and what it's calculated is that males under 35 need a weight of 0.79. Males 36 to 54 want a weight of 1.27, and so on for the 6 cells. We probably could have put in former NRTV in there, so we got rid of percentages, and MPTR, so it looked a little bit tidier, but it's correct. Here's our unweighted data. You remember perhaps from the target video that there's 2 in this cell, 1, 1 and 1 and 1 in all the other cells. And now when we produce the tables, we should find that we've got the targets that we want, that we've got 50% males, 50% females and across here we haven't got horizontal percentage in, but you can see that 2.8 divided by 7.0 gives me 40% here, 40% here, and 20% here. So it looks as though my rim weighting is working perfectly well. These figures in here, of course, we don't know what these would have been. Anything could be true here within reason, because it's only weighting to the outsides of this table, effectively the total column of 50-50 males and 40-40, 20% for the three age groups. So that completes this short video on rim weighting. All of the other things that I stated about target weighting in the target weighting video will apply here. You can have more than one rim working. You could filter these rims in the same way that was described. So you can use the examples that were discussed there. Thank you.